Hey, what's up guys, it's Noah. Welcome back to another video on the channel. Today I'm going to be analyzing two chess games that I've played, and yeah, let's just hop right into it. I've been playing some of the best chess in my life recently, and I've been really enjoying playing on chess.com, so if you want to see more chess content, be sure to leave a like and comment down below on what you'd like to see. In this game I'm playing with the white pieces, and I'm playing against Gabriel Sohara from Brazil. At this point I was sitting around 850, I believe, but I'm up to 870 now again. I've been up as high as 910, I think is my highest that the highest elo that I was at. But after that, I dropped probably 10 straight games. I was not playing well. But recently, I think I'm on a win streak of 5 or 6, and I'm playing very, very, very good chess. In this game, as you can see, I have 98% accuracy. So yeah, let's hop right into it. So I'm with the white pieces. I start with e4, and the opponent responds with their e5 with the king, and we have a standard 4 knights opening. I'm going to move my bishop out first, and then I'm going to bring my second knight as so. And yeah, this is a pretty standard position. What's standard for black is just to bring the bishop out, and we should both castle. He should castle short, I should castle short. It'll be a pretty close position. That's exactly what happens. And then I move my pawn forward to guard this pawn in case they want to take. It's pretty standard. I could also put the pawn up one square, but I wanted to go with a more defensive position. I trusted my ability to play in a closed position. My opponent plays h6 here, which blocks my bishop from coming to this g5 square and pinning the knight to the queen. Which is it's a good move. It blocks. It's very proactive. It blocks my attempt at a pin. So I move my bishop here. It's a much simpler move. It's just developing a piece, but it also offers this bishop trade, right? Because if they take, and I take back with my, what on earth? If I take back with my pawn, there we go. Then my rook is opened up long term. If I can move my knight into here, maybe into this square, and really put pressure on this pawn, and then really put pressure on this knight in behind. Yeah, it just opens up my rook on this file. It's very strong. I don't have to slide it over. I can just go straight ahead. My opponent actually takes the trade. And now, while this structure doesn't look incredible for me, my rook is now open, which is exactly what I wanted. And my opponent makes their first mistake of the game, which is pushing this pawn. And I see this and I'm thinking, well, this is just a free pawn because I have so many things guarding this square and attacking the square. I have this pawn, I have this bishop, I have this knight. It's just too many things that are defending this square, whereas my opponent only has 2 with this queen and the knight. And even if the queen... It's not enough. It's not enough pieces for my opponent to defend, and so I take the pawn. The computer here wants me to take with the knight to maintain offensive pressure into here or into here. I like taking with the pawn because I also attack the knight here. Yeah, so that was my reasoning behind that. And now my opponent makes their second mistake of the game, which is to give their knight away. And now do I take with the bishop or do I take with the knight? I believe the computer actually wants me to take with the bishop to maintain the pressure on this, on the king here, and also the pressure on this knight and this rook afterwards. But I think I end up taking with the knight. I do, because I'd rather lose the knight than the bishop. So that's why I took with the knight first. I probably should have taken with the bishop, but the knight's not a bad move. This is another reason that taking with the bishop is better, because now my knight can't really move to guard the bishop. If I move back, then the bishop just gets hit, and that's not good because then the queen comes in. It's just kind of a messy situation. But as of right now, I'm still up an entire piece, and I'm playing really well. I push this pawn, and now my knight is completely guarded by 2 pieces, and there's only 2 pieces attacking my knight. The opponent pushes their knight into here. I can take this with my knight, but this is also just... if I take, then they take back with their pawn here. Sorry, they take back with their pawn here. But now that this knight is gone, this knight used to be guarding this pawn, and so now this is just a free pawn, which I take. And at this point, the opponent resigns. They're down 4 points of material. It's not the worst position, but my rook is, like I said, the long-term pressure of having the rook on the open file is huge, because now my rook can just come in for free. My knight can go in for free. If I move my knight out, my bishop comes in. It's a not a good position for black, and I end up winning in 12 moves by resignation, which is it was really good to win that early. I felt like I was playing really, really solidly, and I clearly was. I had a 98.4% accuracy rating in this one. I only made 2 mistakes, or I didn't make any mistakes, and I only made 1 move that wasn't excellent. So I feel like I played extremely well in that game. Now on to the second game against Tech King from Canada. I'm with the black pieces this time. My opponent opens up with e4. I counter with e5. They're looking to play the standard 4 knights opening, except that they push this pawn. So apparently, I didn't know this, but apparently the best move for black in this position is just to take, because if they take back and you take, then the queen takes, then you're even and the opponent's queen is out, which is not bad for you at all. I make it so this is one of my an early mistake here for me is I should either take here or take here. It doesn't really matter which way, but I should take with one of these two pieces. Instead, I just defend, and white makes a very, very good move by pushing this pawn and attacking my knight on this square, like that. So now I've got a choice. Where do I put my knight? Do I want to put my knight here and make it a target, or do I want to put my knight here, here, and be a bit more sideways aggressive? Maybe go for a check later on and attack the rook. I decided to put my knight on the outside. The best move is actually to move the knight backwards. That's because it maintains a sort of offensive pressure, because if I can push this pawn, then I can come in here on the take-take, and now my knight's in a very good position, and my knights are very linked up very well. They're coordinated very well. As you can see, they'd be in sync with each other, but now they're very far apart from each other. But however, I am still guarded by this bishop, so nothing can really take this knight at the moment. The dark square bishop for my opponent comes out attacking the knight, and I move my bishop here, which is not the best move in this scenario. It's an okay move. I just wanted to get my bishop out. I wanted to castle soon, so I wanted to put my knight on e7 and castle very early. However, this was probably a bit of an overly aggressive move. The computer actually just wants me to bring my pawn forward so that I can put my bishop on this square and then hit that long diagonal later in the game and move my knight to e7 eventually. Or push this pawn and move my knight to f6. My opponent does an excellent job here. They attack the knight, and what I should do here is just slide back. There's no danger here. Just slide back, relax, keep your knight on the board. I make an awful move here and take with check. Or I don't take. I just give a check. And what I don't realize is that this bishop is still hitting my knight. It's very, very clear in hindsight, but I didn't see it in the moment. And they take, which is absolutely the right move. And now I've got to kind of salvage the position. I play a pawn forward. They attack my bishop. I drop it back. And they give a check with their queen. And this is an okay move, but it's very easily blockable. I can just attack the queen now with my bishop, which is exactly what I do. The queen drops back, and now I bring my knight out. And now what I want to do here, by pushing this pawn, the computer wants this pawn being pushed to force a sort of pawn break, because my queen is actually guarding this bishop here. It's an okay break. I go for this pawn break instead, because if they take, then I can take back, and my rook, I can put my rook on the same file as the queen and go from there. It also kind of frees up my knight as well. If I would rather take back with my knight, I can kind of move it out. My opponent responds with this move, and now I'm thinking, okay, well, if I take this and they take back, then I take and I'm up a pawn, and they can't really maintain any more offensive momentum. Yeah, and I just have a really long bishop diagonal going here. Yeah, my opponent should be castling here, and they don't, and they're going to pay the price for it. I take. And now they take with their queen, which doesn't look like a bad move on paper, because it attacks this, it attacks this, it attacks my bishop, it attacks my rook. But all these pieces are defended. The pawn is defended by the rook, this pawn is defended by the bishop, the bishop is defended by the queen, and the rook is defended by the queen. So it doesn't really do anything except take a pawn for the opponent. And so while there's still 3 points of material up, and as you can see, they're plus 3.75. They're in an awkward position, I think. This is where I started thinking, okay, yes, I'm a piece down, but I can definitely still get back into the game. Now I go for the pawn break that I wanted to earlier. Takes, and then activate my knight. Instead, they come for my bishop, and a bishop trade here is not bad for my opponent. If they want to take my bishop, and then I take back with the queen, and they take with their queen, I have to just take the queen, and I can't castle. This is not an awful move by my opponent at all. However, the computer wants the opponent to just take the pawn back, because, like I said, it was a free pawn for me. And now my opponent's only +2, and I take a third pawn, which is actually a mistake, because I should be guarding this square, and I should be guarding my bishop here long term, with the queen dropping to maybe help out. However, my opponent makes a really bad blunder here and takes with their queen. Now the bishop is free because the queen used to be guarding, and so I take it. And now I'm right back in the game. I'm +1 material, I'm up a pawn, and I'm soaring, right? My opponent brings the knight out to attack, I drop my bishop back. The opponent moves their queen here, and I believe this is only my... this is one of my 2 blunders in the game. Is the castle here. It's a blunder because it puts my king under more pressure than it was before. What I should do is get my queen out and probably castle long, which sounds a little awkward because I don't have any pawns over here, but I think the computer long term wants me to push these pawns up the board and just hide my king on a8 eventually. Get my rook in the game, get this rook in the game, double them up, and go attack the king in the center. It definitely wants my queen on this square because if I bring my bishop to here, there's very little that's going to be able to stop my queen from just coming into this square and just demolishing everything. Yeah, so I castle, which isn't the best move, but then my opponent makes their second blunder with their queen, which is giving a check. And I had 2 options here, right? I can block or I can slide over. And I thought, why would I block there? That doesn't really... It puts my rook in an awkward position, right? Because I want my rook on the back rank to go here eventually. And to just cover this rook as well. So if I put my rook here, it puts it in an awkward position. It's just not ideal. So I thought I'll just slide over, and that is indeed the best move in the position. Now my opponent castles, and I make a little bit of a defensive play with my bishop. The computer wants to take the knight and take back to damage the pawn structure, which isn't a terrible idea, but I wanted to attack the queen. I kick the queen out, and now my bishop is under attack. I make this queen move to defend the bishop, and the intent of it isn't immediately clear. I have a very vicious attack coming that my opponent doesn't see. What they need to do to counter this is sacrifice their own bishop, essentially. They need to sacrifice their bishop, make me guard with the rook on the next play. Because guarding with the rook is the best move objectively in the situation, but I also didn't want to give my opponent enough time to react to my next move. My opponent brings their knight in to attack my queen, and it's not a bad move, but it's not ideal. Another move, like I said, they could have blocked with their bishop. Another move would have been to drop the queen back, because now I take and I sacrifice my bishop with check. So the king can move, the king can take, or the rook can take. It doesn't matter. Whatever happens, I'm now winning the queen, which is exactly what happens. And now I'm +8 material. My queen gets under attack, I take, and we move around a little bit. And here I make a pretty... In a couple moves, I make a pretty bad error. My opponent doubles their rooks, and I give a check, which isn't a bad play. They had their king. And now I'm thinking, okay, how can I go hit these rooks? First of all, I want to push my pawns up the board as quick as possible. And now, as you can see, the rooks are kind of split. So I can think, okay, maybe if I get onto this square, I can attack this rook. If I get on a black square, I can attack this rook with my queen. So I'm thinking here are my 2 options. And I choose one of them. It doesn't really matter. As you can see, the computer offers very little difference. -6.85 if I my queen to b8, which is what I chose, and -6.71. So I actually chose the best move, but this is also not terrible at all. By all means, they're both very similar moves. My opponent drops back. I push a pawn, and the opponent brings their knight in. So I'm thinking, okay, my bishop is under attack. What do I do and what do I get it out? So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to go attack the rook, which is exactly what I do. The opponent comes in and takes with check. The knight's hanging, and I just don't see it. And so I move my king to attack the knight. If I'd taken on if I'd taken on g6, the game probably would have been over. However, this is actually an incredible move because now the computer actually wants the bishop or the rook to go back, because when the knight takes, my queen can take, and there's just not a lot of counterplay for my opponent in that scenario. I'm -14.6 right now. There's just not a lot the opponent can do. I'm just in a really, really good position, because if the rook takes, and I can just take back, or when my king goes here, if they want to take my rook, I can just take their rook with my bishop, and it's just really simple. And here I should just take the rook, because then they have an option. Do they get their knight out, or do they take my bishop back? but instead I take the knight with my king, instead of just taking the free rook. And now, as you can see, white is actually better. Despite me having a queen on the board against 2 rooks and a bishop, and my material is slightly better at +4, white's doing significantly better. Because they give a check, and now they fork my queen and king on the same line. And I can go take it, but they're just going to take it back. Now I am down 0.2. White is winning plus 0.2, and I'm in trouble. So now I've got to go attack the rook, and I've got to try to save the game. But my opponent makes an absolutely awful blunder, trying to attack the pawn, but hanging the rook with the bishop there. So I finally see a backwards bishop move, and now I'm plus 12. And from here on out, this is just game over. This move actually changes the game from minus 15 for black to minus 51. So now I should just go win the game, because this king has to try to get over and come all the way across to stop this pawn from promoting on this square. When the king doesn't come, I just have to push the pawn as fast as possible, which is exactly what I do. I let my pawn be taken to double the opponent's pawns, because now if they want to push here, I take, and yeah, this pawn can't go anywhere. This pawn can only come behind, and my pawn is just not being stopped on its way to becoming a queen. And here, there is one move in the position, and it is to go for checkmate. And that is exactly what happens. So, a couple blunders. I made a really good attack mid-game, but yeah, it could have been a lot cleaner. The conversion could have been, but I was proud of the way I played in the mid-game. Towards the end, it was really sloppy, and I felt like I could have played a lot better. But yeah, that was just my thought process throughout the game. If you guys enjoyed this chess video, then please, like I said, leave a like, comment what you want to see in the future, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you.